Wednesday to everybody. I'm on a lot of different platforms here, doing my Wednesday live with you all. So I am live for you guys on YouTube. We're on Facebook and Instagram. I'm live with you guys as well. And I am here to answer your questions, your fasting questions. A lot of you guys have already asked us questions from the post we put out a couple of days ago. So I'm going to start by answering those. I do want to talk a little bit. There's a common theme that we're seeing in a lot of the questions. So I want to talk a little bit about metabolic switching. How do you know when to switch in and out of fasting and eating? That seems to be a very, very common question right now. And then I'm going to answer the questions that you guys sent in, and you guys that are turning in. I love it. Oh my gosh, we already got people. Lisa from YouTube is like, what's the best fast for autoimmune disease? I love it, Lisa. You're like the first question right there. I can see it. So I am going to answer that for sure. But if you have some questions, you have some comments, if you have a great fasting story, I love you guys. I love your fasting stories. Your miracle stories are incredible. It's what fuels me. So please share with the community what your stories are, your fasting experience has been. And as always, I just want to encourage you all to fast. So let me start off with metabolic switching. And Lisa, don't worry, I'll answer your question. I love talking about autoimmune and how we can use fasting to help autoimmune conditions. So let me start off with this idea, and it's all around metabolic switching. And one of the things that I think is so fascinating about fasting, and I've been sharing this with my academy group, and I really want to, I like looking at things from a big picture and then getting down into the details. And when we look at how fasting has emerged in our world, one of the things that caught everybody's attention with fasting is that you can finally get results with fasting that you couldn't get with food changes. And if that's you, put it in the comments, because you guys might just be passively listening. But believe it or not, so many people come and read these comments. So you're inspiring others as you're leaving comments. But if we come back to this idea that we have these two energy systems, we have the sugar burner energy system and we have the fat burner energy system. When we all, and I'm 51 years old, when I used to diet like crazy, I carried 20, 30 extra pounds for a good part of my life. And I was always trying to manipulate my diet until I discovered fasting. And then once I discovered fasting, I figured out like, oh my God, there's this whole other sugar, like this whole other energy system that I hadn't even been tapping into. I was the classic person who would wake up in the morning and eat breakfast. I would have a smoothie in the morning, like every morning for like decades. And it was like in my mouth before I was even half awake. So I was eating all day long, thinking that food was how I was going to stay healthy. And it still is. We'll talk about that in a moment. But once I discovered fasting and I started to take my eating and compress it into a shorter eating window, what I noticed was my mental clarity went up, my energy improved, my sleeping got better, all the things you guys are noticing. So this, in the fasting world, what has happened is that you guys, when you come to fasting, you're like, whoa, this is incredible. And you get these results you were never able to get with food before. But then you get really fasting obsessed, where you want to fast longer. You're doing one meal a day. Some of you are scared to eat. We don't want that. The whole goal to keep you metabolically healthy is you need to be able to switch in and out of these two energy systems. So if you're new to fasting, what I want to tell you is you have been trying to manipulate your health with food only. Okay, so welcome to fasting. And now let's learn how to fast. So just start with intermittent fasting. 13 to 15 hours is great. Okay, once you've got a little groove with fasting, now we want to learn how to go in and out of eating and fasting back and forth very smoothly. And there are some really strategic ways to do that. So the first is that we want to vary our fasts. So there has been a lot of discussion recently on all my channels about, well, what does fasting variation look like? And it looks like some days you do 13 hours fast, some days you do 15, some days you do 24, maybe every couple of weeks you do a 36, and sometimes you don't fast. Last week I was on vacation and I ate breakfast. It was really exciting. I was like, oh, I haven't had breakfast in a long time. And I actually, because I had more time on my hands, I found myself eating earlier in the day and not at the end of the day. Whereas when I'm working a lot, I tend to be busy all morning and then eat at the end of the day. So once you understand how to fast, now let's work on the varying the lengths. And those of you that have been fasting for a long time, what I want you to realize is that we want to make sure we're always, always is a strong word. We want to make sure every once in a while we are pushing our fast so it's a little bit of a stretch so that we can keep forcing the body to heal. So when we look at metabolic switching and this moving in and out in the fat burner energy system, the most important thing that you do is you vary your fasts. This is why I've been teaching you guys 6 different fasts, is that there's 6 different styles you can vary. But once you have that handled, let's come on over to food. Now let's talk about food for a second. The other day, last week, I was on vacation and I meandered into a store I hadn't been in before. And I was walking past the bread aisle and I saw a keto bread. And I thought, and it was put out by Oro Wheat. And I was like, I'm not buying it. I can't imagine that Oro Wheat put out a good product. I'm a little dubious of big pharma. I'm dubious of ingredients that are not supportive of our health. So I pick up the keto bread and I look at it, I read the ingredients, and it's just garbage ingredient after garbage ingredient after garbage ingredient. So I was so upset. I actually ended up doing an Instagram stories on it. Some of you might have seen it. So I want to remind you that when we are eating, the most important thing when we eat is that we are eating quality food. That is the most important. The most important thing when we fast is that we're varying our fasting lengths. And that includes sometimes not fasting. So we now happen to have the basis for these 2 energy systems, and we can now move in and out. We can eat good quality food and be healthy, and we can fast and be healthy. And we're going to move in and out of these 2 states. Now, I want to speak specifically to you guys that want to lose weight. If you want to lose weight, now, let me back up for a moment. If all you want to do is be metabolically healthy, which right now in this moment in history, we should all be obsessed on metabolic health. There is study after study after study showing that if you are metabolically inflexible, and what that means is that you can't eat food and fast and go in and out of these 2 systems very efficiently. If you are metabolically unhealthy, you are immune suppressed. Now, some of you might be hearing this and going, well, I don't feel immune suppressed. But if there's anything that this pandemic has taught us, it's that we can look around at our fellow humans and we could assume that they're healthy, but we don't know what does healthy look like. I mean, you might look at me and go, well, I look healthy, but do you know that I run lab work on myself every year? I run hormone tests. I run a gut test on myself every single year. I do a full body thermography on myself every single year, because health is a very elusive destination. And we have been taught, it doesn't matter what country you're in, we have been taught that if you don't have symptoms, then you are healthy. And I call bullshit on that. I don't know if any of these platforms are going to take me off for swearing, but I literally say that is the most erroneous way to look at our health. Symptoms, by the time a symptom appears, it means you got a problem. We got to deal with it. So we've got to really come back to the basics of what makes a human healthy. And that is being able to eat. And when you eat, you're not eating crappy ingredients. When you eat, you should get energy from your food. If you eat and you fall asleep afterwards and you're exhausted, that meal didn't work for you. So when we eat, we need to be able to eat and feel energized and feel better. And when we fast, we should be able to get that moment like I'm having right now. I'm about 16 hours into a fast. I'm getting ketones. I'm feeling energized. We should get energy and we should be able to move in and out of these two states. That is called metabolic switching. That is where our immune system will be its best. So for right now, I want you guys to focus on that quality ingredients, varying your fasts. Now, if you want to lose weight, let's take the food to a whole nother level. How about you start bringing your carbohydrate load down? So the first place to go is you take the breads and the pastas and the cookies and the crackers, you take all that out. So you want to stick to nature's carbs, eat potatoes, eat fruit, eat vegetables. I know you guys that are like keto heads are like, what? Eat fruit? No, eat fruit every once in a while, vary it. So if you want to lose weight, you start by pulling out the really refined flours and sugars. You also start looking at your oils. So if there's one food that I do not put up with, it's bad oils. So these are your safflower, your sunflower, your corn, your oils, your cottonseed, your partially hydrogenated. These are everything that's in a flippin' Krispy Kreme donut that people are eating thinking that it's a great thing to be eating. It's not. Something like a Krispy Kreme donut is like literally the worst thing to eat because you got the bad oils, you got the refined flours, and you got the sugars. So if you want to go to one more step and one more layer of health, then we are going to pull those refined carbohydrates out. We're going to pull the bad fats out now, and we're going to start fasting. I kid you not. If you gave me 100 people who had metabolic syndrome, if all I did was pull those bad oils out and pull out the refined flours and the refined sugars and teach them how to vary their fasts, I would see them drop weight. I would see their numbers change. I would see all their lab work change. I would help them pull them out of metabolic syndrome, and they would become more immune strong. So those of you right now that are worried about the situation going on in the world, this is what you do. You point the finger back at yourself and you start to take priority and responsibility for your own health by minding the oils, minding the sugars and flours, and fasting and varying those fasts. It's that simple. That doesn't cost any money. If anything, that's gonna save you money. So I'm gonna start with that principle. Now, don't worry, Lisa. I haven't forgotten your autoimmune. One of the things that I told you guys when I started this live today is that I love your wins. I mean, there was a woman in England, God, this was at the beginning of the summer, who told me she got off 8 medications. She lost like 80 pounds just following what I just told you and doing that for a year. Okay, think about how many people we could get healthy. That doesn't take time. That doesn't take money. We could help so many people that way. And so when I look, like I got some great testimonials from you, 3 of them that were like some of my favorite this week. This guy, I don't know what platform he was on, but his name is The Deaf Bartender. And he said that he reached the 2-month mark of intermittent fasting and he's dropped 2 inches. Okay, that's just fasting. I don't even know what he did with his food. And he's noticed a dramatic improvement in his energy and overall happiness. Okay, let me know on the comments if that's you. Are you happier when you fast? Is your energy up when you fast? These kind of things, there are people out there that don't understand fasting that are dying to get. They're paying lots of money to find. So look at this guy just from intermittent fasting, 2 months. And then Michelle McKenzie is 25 pounds down in 10 weeks. Okay, now it is the year 2021. If I went back to the 1980s when I was growing up and trying to lose weight and I was on every diet trying to lose weight, if you had told me that there was something I could do to lose 25 pounds in 10 weeks, I would have been like, sign me up. Yep, I want to do that. I just didn't know about fasting back then. So this is why it's so exciting to know that we have a tool that is free that can help us drop weight like that. And then my other favorite one is we got a lot of you guys that have been telling us that you are noticing changes in your happiness level. You're noticing your anxiety is going down from doing the longer fast, the dopamine fast. So that was the 48-hour fast. And uh, Brooks, oh gosh, I want to say the name right, but it was Brooks Allen said that she's definitely noticed doing more dopamine fasts, and that she's noticing that not only has she dropped weight, her weight is melted away. Love that. Her energy is up. She's smiling more on the inside and out, and she has zero brain fog and a happy heart. Okay, no medication, no doctor. She just tapped into her own healing power. That is what fasting can do for you. But we can't just get obsessed on fasting. We've got to think of the quality of our food, and then we've got to learn how to switch in and out. If this switching in and out is difficult for you guys, every 2 months, I do a reset where I gather my people together and I take you through a 15-day experience where you can learn how to do that. So there's one coming up. We're going to in the next couple of weeks. So if you want to learn how to do this more efficiently, just go to my webpage, sign up for my email, or you'll see notifications for it. But it's the September Fat Burner Reset. And that's available to you, where we are coaching people through the process of metabolic switching. A year ago, you guys, when we started this whole pandemic, I'm a researcher. I love the science. I want to know why. It's not enough for me to just know that something's good. I want to know, why is it good? How is the body responding? So I dove into what was going on with viruses. I dove into trying to understand why the world was so immune compromised. And here we are a year and 3, 4, 5, 6 months later, year and a half later, and there is one consistent thing that is emerging to the top. And that is that we are metabolically unhealthy as a world. And we're metabolically unhealthy because what we've done in our modern world is we are eating all day from food bought in a grocery store full of chemicals that are making us metabolically unfit. So it's not hard. Just stick with it. If you're hearing me and you're like, I like this, but it's not working for me, stick with it, or come join me in one of my resets. But don't give up on yourself. Please don't give up on yourself. The world, when we start arguing about who's getting jabbed and who's not, what I want to tell you is we need to all turn within and say, okay, I don't need my neighbor to do something. I need me to be metabolically healthy. If I could get that into everybody's brain right now, we would be out of the situation that the world is in right now. That's how simple it is. And fasting is our way out. Okay. With that in mind, Lisa, I'm going to answer your question. And then I'm going to go into some of the other questions. So Lisa wanted to know autoimmune. What is going on with autoimmune? I will tell you what I tell my Academy members all the time. So when we look at autoimmune conditions, we've got to see it like a 3-legged stool. When you have a 3-legged stool, that stool is only stable if all 3 legs are balanced. Same thing with an autoimmune condition. You need these 3 things to be balanced. Okay, first is your genetics. Okay, well, how do you control that? That's a whole nother live. I'll do it a separate time. But if you walked into your doctor's office and you were diagnosed with Hashimoto's and you asked why, which is what you should always ask, always. When you walk into your doctor's office and they give you a diagnosis, you ask why. And when they say it's genetic, you say why. You keep saying, well, why did that gene get turned on? Why? And if they don't know the answer, you go find another doctor. It's called getting to the root cause. So with autoimmune conditions, yes, there's a genetic part of this. I'm not debating that. But there is a lifestyle that turned that gene on. And it's the other 2 legs that turned it on. So the second leg is your gut. So we've got to bring health back to your gut. Okay, well, let's start off by saying, well, what is destroying your gut? So antibiotics, 1 round of antibiotics. I've got a gal in my toxin reset group right now who is like humming along, losing weight, great blood sugar balance, doing really well. And then she had to go on antibiotics because sometimes antibiotics are necessary to save your life. And now she cannot get her blood sugar under balance. She can't lose weight. She's struggling. Go listen to the podcast I just did with Dr. Stephen Gundry. He and I talked about this. There is incredible science showing that 1 round of antibiotics changes your microbiome and causes you to start to gain weight. So we can't leave this microbiome out. But to Lisa's question, which is what fast is best for autoimmune? Well, we've got to get the gut back in shape. And how we get the gut back in shape, I feel like you guys have been listening to me a while, know the answer to this, is we do more 24-hour fasts. So 24 hours, the science out of MIT showed that we start to make more intestinal stem cells. Now, that study was done in mice. We are not mice, we are humans. But mouse studies, male studies for the women, all of this gets us into the ballpark. And it says, okay, so fasting has the capability to be able to help us lose weight or help us repair our gut microbiome. We know 24 hours it works in mice, so let's just apply the same type of principle and see how we do. So if you have an autoimmune condition, you've got to make sure that you're throwing some 24-hour fasts in there. Doesn't mean you 24-hour fast all the time, but Lisa, I would tell you once a week. I used to have candida really bad. I had a lot of sugar cravings that were really bad. And I can't even, I mean, bowel movements that were off, not to get too personal. And the more 24-hour fasts I did, it just went away. I stopped taking probiotics. I started leaning into food. So I started doing more sauerkrauts and things like that. And my gut problems went away. So if you have an autoimmune condition, if you have a gut issue, more 24-hour fasts. If you go on antibiotics, more 24-hour fasts. Those are fantastic. Okay. Third leg of the stool for autoimmune is triggers. So there are stressors. And in the category of stressors, we have chemical. So these are everything we're breathing in, all the chemicals we're putting on our skin. All of that is triggering genes. It is turning on problems that you don't need to have, that you didn't need to turn on. So look at your toxic load. Start looking at your environment. Look at your household cleaners. Look at what the toxins in your food. Look at, like, have you ever, I had this experience recently where I bought some nice drapes for my living room. And I wasn't even thinking, I just bought the drapes because I liked the color and I was so excited. And when they came, I pulled them out and the off-gassing was incredible. And all I could think was like, oh my God, here I'm getting a surge of chemicals. That's horrible. So I opened up all the windows so the off-gassing would go outside, not inside me. So look at all the chemicals that you might be exposed to. So there is a chemical trigger to autoimmunity. Second thing I would say that you've got to look at is the physical triggers. So are you sitting all day? Are you inside all day? Go back. Anytime your health isn't thriving, go back and ask, how close to your daily life are you living like the cave people did? So the cave people didn't stay in the cave all day long. Why didn't they stay in the cave? Because there was no light in the cave. So they went out, they went walking, they got sunlight. We all need to get sunlight in the middle of the day. We need to get morning light. We need to get afternoon light. We've talked a lot about that. And those of you in my academy, I've taught you guys how to sleep, how to balance up your circadian rhythm. So just make sure that you're not waking up in the morning and drinking your cup of coffee, going to work, staying inside all day, sitting all day. That is a stressor. That is a physical stressor. And then the last part of autoimmune, that last leg of autoimmunity, is toxicity. So, is emotional. So with emotional stress, which, holy cow, can we turn off the news? Can we stop the bad news? I'm going to tell you guys the same thing, especially you guys on Instagram. I told my academy yesterday, if you have a funny video, you have a good puppy video, you have something that makes you laugh, flipping DM me that, because I like to sit and look at videos that make me laugh. I don't want to go onto my social media and find things that make me angry and stressed, because that's not good for my health. So get off of the negative news, get away from the friends that are complaining, and start to surround yourself with positivity. If I was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, that would be a massive priority for me. If I was diagnosed with anything scary, if I had COVID right now, if all of that, I would be staying away from negative people and negative situations. And I would be filling myself up with positivity, watching funny movies, and really working on keeping this in a very good place. So, to Lisa's question, which fast is best for autoimmune conditions? Those are the 3 steps. So we've got the genetic piece, and there's a whole strategy that we teach in my academy on that. We've got the gut. We know we do 24-hour fast to improve gut health. And we've got the stressor piece. And so we're going to bring down our toxic load of all the toxic stuff we're slathering on us, and breathing in, get rid of your favorite cologne and swap it out for an essential oil, get rid of the plug-in, get rid of the Christmas tree that's hanging in your car that you think is making it smell so great. Like, get that stuff out, and then get outside and start moving, get the sunlight so you're seeing the sunlight, and then hang around positive people. I love this on YouTube. Rachel just said 30s and 40s music is so uplifting. I love it. Sure, let's all put in here our favorite. What music is like your go-to? Everybody needs a go-to song. So what is your favorite music that like lifts you up and pulls you into a good state? That's what we need to be talking about. Go to social media today and put something positive out there for the rest of the world to see. Stop complaining. Stop being stuck in fear, because that is bringing not only our immune systems down, but it is destroying the human race at this particular moment. So please, let's all work Eye of the Tiger. I agree, Lisa. I actually used to wake up to Eye of the Tiger. I had it as my alarm, and I would pop out of bed ready to go with Eye of the Tiger. So awesome. I love it. You guys, great movies. I'll tell you what we do in my office a lot. We used to take breaks at lunch, and we would watch funny Ellen clips where she would send people into different stores and make them do funny things. And we would laugh for like a half an hour before patients would come in the afternoon. At home, one of my favorite is Schitt's Creek. If you haven't watched Schitt's Creek, please go watch Schitt's Creek. It's hysterical. My husband and I right now are deeply into Ted Lasso. Super funny. Now is the time more than ever for us to put into our minds something positive and uplifting. If you are worried about your neighbor's immune system, don't go and ridicule them. Make them laugh. Teach them how to fast. Empower them to be healthier. This is not the time to start pointing fingers at each other. This is the time to come together and lift each other up and share with each other things that are working. I don't know how I can emphasize that anymore, but that is like a massively important thing to me. When I will tell you that when we first went into this pandemic, I told my family, my husband and my 2 kids, I told them there are 2 things that we will not do as we go through this process. The first is we are not going to buy into the fear. We are going to stay in action. My 80-year-old parents, I brought them to my house and I was like, here's your plan for the pandemic. This is how we are going to keep you strong. They are healthier today, a year and a half later today than they were before the pandemic. The pandemic improved their health because we had a plan. So I said, we're not gonna argue. We're not gonna go into fear. And the second thing I told my kids and my husband is we are not going to lose relationships over this. This will take down the human race if we start pointing fingers at each other. And I really can't emphasize enough, what I love about fasting is that it gives you the power back. It gives you something that you can do that can support your health. And it doesn't cost any money. It doesn't cost any money. It's free. So this is why content after content, I've spent so much of my day trying to give you guys information so that you empower you, and then take that information and share it out. Okay. with all of that being said, I am going to go into questions. Okay. And these were the ones that were asked earlier. So, what do I think about the new study on fasting? Okay. So, if some of you haven't seen the new study on fasting, I'm just going to give you a short synopsis. Those of you on Instagram that are listening right now, go watch the Instagram live that I put out last Saturday. But I want to teach you guys how to think about fasting studies. So the study was put out, and it was made quite popular by a health influencer that I respect, and she put out a study saying that when people fast, they lose muscle. And the study went on to say that not only do they lose muscle, they don't lose weight. Okay, so let me address the first thing. The first thing is that, do you lose muscle when you fast? And I'm going to give you the short version, and then you can go watch my Instagram live and get all the details. But let's go back to these two systems. When you are in the fat burner system and you are fasting, you are in repair. Okay, let's look at other things the body does when it's repairing. Sleep is repair. Fevers are repair. Inflammation is repair. Rashes are repair. That's the body pushing toxins out. We have a lot of symptoms that are not really excitable, but it is the body repairing itself. So when this study showed that if you go into these longer fasts and you lose muscle, the muscle may be breaking down. Now, not for all of us, but for some of us, especially if you don't have a lot of weight to lose, when you go into some of the longer fasts, you might feel like your muscles are shrinking. Okay, but that's in the fasted state. And remember, we have two energy systems. We don't just have one, we have two. So the second energy system, when you break your fast, when you go back to eating, if you're worried about muscle loss, then lean into more protein. Especially women that are over 40, we need more protein. We definitely need more protein. So I agree that protein is muscle building. I agree that our muscles are a longevity organ, but we can't look at fasting and villainize it and say it's no good because it breaks muscle down. If you want to build muscle, the absolute best way to build muscle is to fast. Do the longer fast, go 17-hour and plus, do a 24-hour fast, and then go and do a strength training workout, do some push-ups if you don't have barbells or you don't have a gym or you can't get to your gym or your gym is closed. Do some, doesn't take a lot, like 5 minutes of muscle strength, and then go eat a bunch of protein. Get some eggs, some sausages, whatever lights your protein mind up, go get a bunch of protein. Now, what I want you to know is, and a lot of you who are vegetarian are going to be like, well, what do I do? And there are other sources of protein with vegetarianism. It's just not as prolific. So you might have to do more pea protein. You might have to do more nuts. You're going to have to get a little more creative. So I agree with the study in the sense that it can break muscle down, but it's temporary and it's an opportunity for you to be strategic when you go and break your fast to actually build muscle. That's the part I want you to know. And I say it in much more detail on the Instagram live I did. Again, if you guys are like hearing me and you're not quite, don't know how to do it, come join me in my Reset Academy. It's a smaller group. I've got 500,000 people across all of my platforms. And so you guys are getting big, broad picture, but in my Reset Academy, it's a smaller group and I can help you. My team can help you in a much more intimate setting. So if this isn't working for you, join us over there. And we are about to do a reset starting in a couple of weeks. Okay. So that was number one. You can see I have a lot of opinions about that one. And I was frankly, anytime a health influencer, says one study is the answer to that we should all adopt and change our behavior off of one study, that's erroneous. So the New England Journal of Medicine is the best meta-analysis that I have ever seen on fasting. It came out in December 2019. You guys on YouTube are watching me on YouTube. You can go to my YouTube channel and see I've done videos on it. It's a meta-analysis. And a meta-analysis is where they look at a lot of different studies and come up with a conclusion. 1,500 peer-reviewed studies was this meta-analysis. That means the New England Journal of Medicine looked at 1,500. So when one study comes out, please don't judge your whole fasting behavior off of one study. I love the New England Journal of Medicine study because what it did on these 1,500 studies that it looked at is it said fasting rocks. It's amazing. It's healing for obesity, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, MS, cancer, Alzheimer's, dementia, pre and post surgery. It was amazing. But it said why fasting was amazing was because you are periodically flipping your metabolic switch. It wasn't that fasting was the hero of the day. It was that fasting allowed you to do metabolic switching. That is the goal. So I hope that makes sense. I said this in my Instagram TV last week, is I'm teaching you guys how to think. I don't want you to rely on me. I don't want you to rely on your doctor. I don't want you to fall prey to what the news is saying. I want you to start to learn how to critically think about this. We are in an information overload world right now, and we are taking sound bites and taking them as truth, and we're not going down into the nuance and understanding how to think for ourselves. So I wanted to point that out. Okay. The second question was, how often should you switch between being a fat burner and a sugar burner? This is also a great question. And here's the problem, is that it's individual to each one of you. So I would say in a 24-hour period on most days, except you guys women, you know that I really teach you how to fast around your cycle, postmenopausal women. I've talked to you guys about, I wrote a whole book for you called The Menopause Reset, talk to you about how to fast and how to vary your fast. So women have to vary their fasts a lot more than men. But in a 24, well, let's do it this way. In a week period, what fat burner, sugar burner should look like for most people is 5 days a week, you're intermittent fasting, 13 hours, 15 hours. And then you decide the food that you want to eat. I just gave you at the beginning of this. If you're joining me late, come in, go watch the beginning once this goes up. But you stick to good quality food. If you want to lose weight, follow those 3 things that I recommended. So 5 days a week, you're intermittent fasting. You can go keto if you want to go keto. You don't want to go keto, don't go keto. Just stick to good quality ingredients. 1 day a week, you're going to push your fast. You're going to do it a little longer, 24 hours. You could try a 36. If you want the dopamine fast, do a 48. So that would be 2 days. But 1 day a week, you're going to stretch your fast. And 1 day a week, you're not going to fast. It's that simple. That's what sugar burner, fat burner variation looks like. Now, on Instagram, I think on Facebook too, I put out a little square that showed, well, what if you have anxiety? What would that protocol look like? And so I put that out and I showed you guys, a lot of you gave, in fact, whenever I put anything out, if you guys have used those protocols and you have a good testimonial, put it in there. We have so many people coming to my YouTube videos, so many people coming to Instagram that they learn from you. So you go and put your wins and you inspire millions. Okay. So that's sugar burner, fat burner. Okay. The third one, this one's really fun. Somebody asked me, what's my favorite length fast? So I will tell you, and this is going to be actually kind of a funny story. The first time I learned about fasting, intermittent fasting, again, I looked at the science and I was like, okay, 13 to 15 hours without food. I guess I could do that. Like, I guess I'll try that 1 day. I could do that 1 day. And then I read deeper into the study and I was like, I'm supposed to do that every day? Holy cow. And so I tried it 1 day and I was like, I don't know what I thought. And I thought, well, let me try intermittent fasting every day for a week. By the end of the week, my 3 o'clock crash in the afternoon, it went away. My energy, it just overall went up. My mental clarity, I stopped having to work out as much. Like everything changed just from intermittent fasting. And I was so excited that I wanted to learn more. So now that was about 3 years ago. And I spend probably 10 hours a week diving into the research on fasting. I love fasting. I'm so convinced it's how we're going to save the world at this particular moment. And so I do longer fasts because my body craves them, except when I know my cycle's coming. The week before my cycle, my body doesn't crave fasting. As a perimenopause, menopause woman, whatever world of menopause I'm in, a lot of times I get hungry at 10 in the morning and I'll eat. But my favorite absolute fast for the most part is somewhere between 17 to 24 hours. And the reason I like that is it allows me to be productive in the morning. I'm the most productive in the morning. And then I can eat. My new favorite time to eat is about 2 or 3 in the afternoon. And then I eat a big meal at 2 or 3 in the afternoon. And then I kind of eat lighter meals throughout the day. I've been really sleeping better if I eat earlier. So I've been going into eating a lot earlier, which has been really helpful as well. So 17 to 24 is my favorite. Those of you that have been fasting with me for a while, put it in the comments what your favorite is. Again, I read the comments. I love hearing what you're enjoying with fasting. Okay. Fourth thing, there's been good questions this time. Somebody said, do you ever eat sugar? Okay. I'll throw this one out there as well. So in my 20s, I had a sugar addiction. I had a lot of candida, which is in my gut, caused me to have a lot of sugar cravings. It was hard to fight. And when I found, the first thing I found before I found keto and before I found fasting was the paleo diet. And when I found the paleo diet and I really took all breads and pastas and things like that out of my diet, I started to see that my sugar cravings went away. And then when I went to keto, they almost completely went away. And then I added fasting in, and I literally do not crave sugar anymore. It's like, my 25-year-old version of me would look at the 51-year-old version and be in disbelief. So I don't eat a lot of sugar because I have this message in my brain that and a craving that kicks in the minute I start to eat sugar. So I look at a piece of sugar, I look at a dessert, and I say, okay, yeah, that might taste good, but then I'm going to have to struggle for 3 days to overcome those sugar cravings. It's just an old pattern that I don't want to go back to. So I don't do a lot. Now, the second part of that question was, and if you bake, what kind of sugar do you use? So about 6 years ago, I brought coconut sugar into my family, into my household. And believe it or not, I love to bake. I do a lot. Sundays are my baking day. I bake for my family. And there are two ingredients that you will find in my household that might not be in yours. And that is one, we do coconut sugar. It is lower on the glycemic index. It's not stevia. It's lower than honey, and it cooks really well. So like my son loves cheesecake. So I will make cheesecake with coconut sugar and a really fatty, a lot of cream cheese, organic cream cheese, something really fatty because the fat will help the blood sugar be more stable. So I'll do a high fat mixed with coconut sugar. And then the second ingredient that I use for myself is anything gluten-free. So with like a cheesecake, I'll take like gluten-free cookies and I'll put them as the base. Now, my family's been eating that way for a long time. So my 19-year-old son will often tell me if the coconut sugar worked or not, but that's how we bake in my family. Monk fruit has worked really well. I'm not a fan of stevia. I know some of you are fans. I wish I could like it. It tastes to me like Diet Coke. It has a very saccharine taste, and I don't like it. Erythritol, I don't really like what it does to my gut. Kind of makes my gut a little upset. So I stick to coconut sugar. I do some monk fruit, and that's what I use. Okay. Somebody asked about maple sugar. This is fascinating. So do you know that have you ever picked up your maple syrup and seen that some of them have different grades? There's grade A, grade B. So grade B maple syrup has more amino acids, has more nutrients, is lower on the glycemic index. So it is a healthier approach. Whereas grade A is going to be more processed, going to be on a higher end. Again, going back to my past sugar addiction, I don't really do a lot of maple syrups. I don't do a lot of dates because it does two things to me, those two things. One, it puts me to sleep. If I have like too much sugar, I'm like, boom, I'm out. The second thing is it sparks that sugar craving. So it's just a place I don't want to go back to. Once you get healthy, it's like you want to stay in that place. And so there are certain triggers for me that I just don't go back to. Okay. Number 4 was, I like this one too. Tips on positive messaging around fasting in regards to your kids and your teens. Ooh, I haven't been asked this in a long time. And I think if you have kids, if you're a teacher, if you have kids watching you, here's what I want to tell you. So the first thing is remember that the human body was made to fast. So, but we never want to force fasting on anybody. Fasting has to be a personal journey. It has to be a personal decision. So if you have a 13-year-old that's got extra weight and you're listening to me and you're like, oh my God, I got to get him to fast, it has to be his choice. It can't be your choice. So that goes for spouses, that goes for friends, that goes for anybody. Fasting is the only person that can do fasting. The fasting lifestyle is you. So don't push it on anybody. Second thing with kids, and then I'll go to teens. With kids, I would encourage you to to watch your kids and see what their natural rhythm was. So I know when my kids were little, that there was this trend that kids get up in the morning, they get breakfast, then they get a mid-morning snack, then they get lunch, then they get an afternoon snack, and then they get dinner. And there was like this constant serving food to kids all day long. And we never, at least when I was parenting, before I understood all of this, I rarely think, are they hungry? I thought it's breakfast, it's time to eat. It's lunchtime, it's time to eat. How many of us, and put it in the notes here, that are parents that have said the kitchen's closed. We're serving dinner now. And if you don't eat now, the kitchen's closed. Now, I don't want to be cooking meals for my kids all day long, but I will tell you the biggest gift we can give our kids is helping them tune in to when they are hungry. This is one of the biggest problems. If we go back to this idea that metabolic syndrome is a major issue across the world, if we go back to this idea that only 12% of Americans are metabolically fit, then why is that? And so much of that is because we've lost our own intuitive sense of when to eat and when not to eat. So with kids, we want to sort of watch their timing. One thing that I learned with my kids is when I picked them up from elementary school, they were hungry. And so I quickly learned I better have some food in the car or my car ride home from school is going to be horrific. So I started bringing food in the car for them. So start watching where your kids are hungry and helping them understand what their natural rhythms are. The worst thing we can say to a kid is you got to eat because it's time to eat. We want to teach them to have intuitive sense of when they should be eating. Okay. Teens, let's talk about teens. And I especially have a heart for the teen girls. So again, never do we say, hey, it's time for you to fast. If you have a teenager that is struggling to lose weight, one of the things and wants to know if she can fast, or if he can fast, then the first start is to help them regain that rhythm I talked about in the younger kids. I will give you an example. My 19-year-old son, when he was 15, he was a freshman in high school, I started to watch myself chasing him out the door as he went off to school with his breakfast. And I'd be like, hey, your breakfast, you forgot your breakfast. And then he would, he'd kind of, as teenagers will, sort of like, dismiss you. And he'd go off to school. And I was like, oh my God, like what kind of parent am I? I didn't even give him breakfast. And then one day I sat him down and I said, do you not want breakfast? You seem like you don't want your breakfast. And he's like, no, I don't. And I said, well, when are you hungry? And he said, I'm hungry at like about 10 o'clock. And so I said, okay, well, what do you do? Do you get a break? Can you eat? And so we started to repattern his whole day based off of that. So it's similar as to the kids, but again, we want to get back into this natural rhythm and teach kids how to get back into the natural rhythm. Now, if you have a 16-year-old that's coming to you and says, I want to try a 24-hour fast. I want to do a 3-day water fast. And it's their choice and they want to do it. Fabulous. If they're going to go into some of the longer fasts, I would encourage you to have somebody coaching them through it. I've seen kids, 15-year-old, 13-year-old kids. I saw a 13-year-old kid one time do a 14-day water fast, but both his parents were functional health specialists and they were watching him and it was his idea. So that kind of gives you a broad spectrum on that. Okay. 2 more questions. Somebody asked about, they listened to the Stephen Gundry podcast, which if you guys haven't listened to that podcast, he blew me away. We just released it yesterday, Dr. Stephen Gundry, and it's on energy and leaky gut. It was profound. I asked him a lot of questions about oxalates and lectins, and he had great answers. So one of the things that came out of that is we talked about glycine, and this person is asking what the good sources of glycine are. The absolute best source of glycine is bone broth. And if you don't drink bone broth, get bone broth protein powder. I really like the one from Paleo Valley. I also, anything collagen related, like collagen ECM from Systemic Formulas is great for glycine. I've been mildly addicted to Organifi's product called Glow that has collagen in it. So that's fabulous. If you are a vegetarian, your glycine options are a little smaller and you're going to have to lean into more foods. So things like spinach, seaweed, these can be sauerkraut. Cabbage has some glycine in it. And then if you turn it into sauerkraut, you're getting some great probiotics in there. So you're just going to need to lean into more of those vegetables that might have glycine. But it's a little bit harder. Bone broth is absolutely the best one. Okay, then the last question was, what is a prebiotic fiber and does it break the fast? So when we're looking at the microbiome, I'm a big fan of looking at the 3 Ps: polyphenol, probiotic, and prebiotic foods. Probiotic foods like sauerkraut, what you're doing is you're adding good bacteria into the gut. Prebiotic foods, you are feeding the bacteria that are already there and you're magnifying them. So good prebiotic fibers are easy. They're things like hemp seeds, chia seeds. When I make a salad for my family, I pour hemp seeds and chia seeds all over it. And it only enhances the taste. I haven't had any complaints from my kids, which usually is the litmus test. So lean into more seeds. Now, we also have some great prebiotic fibers. Anything fibrous, by the way, leafy green vegetables are prebiotic fibers. But we also have things like Balance from Organifi. So every day I come to the office, I don't know if you guys can see this, come to the office with a big bottle of water and I either put Element in there, I'll put some minerals. In here today, I've got the watermelon one. Oh my God, it's so tasty. If you guys have done watermelon Element, put a comment. So I've got Element in there, and then I'll take a Balance, the little packets from Organifi, and put it in there. And that works incredible. And then the last question that somebody asked me that I love is somebody said, well, what if I don't want to do wine at night? What's your go-to if you're not doing wine? Now, here in America, we're moving into fall soon. And Organifi has put out a product called Gold, and it tastes like pumpkin spice. You will never find me in a Starbucks. We'll never be doing a pumpkin spice latte. Just personal value for me. Too many chemicals in there. Don't want them. So, but Gold tastes very much like a pumpkin latte. I'll be honest, it's not like an exact, like, a swap out for the pumpkin spice latte, but it is so good and it's warm. And the thing I love about what they did is it improves parasympathetic activity. So it relaxes you like a glass of wine would do. So you guys, the products, by the way, those are options. I really hope that you guys see that when I give you suggestions, I always give you a free answer. This is what I love about fasting. It's free. I want the whole world to fast. I'm trying to get 1 million people to fast. So we all have different socioeconomic capabilities. So fasting is free. I'm always giving you free advice. And then I love giving you food advice because we have people all over the world. You can go find it anywhere. That's awesome. And then I give you product advice because some of you want to use the products. I'm going to tell you what hurts my heart is when I see people go, oh, you're pushing the products. It makes me sad because literally, I do this to I'm doing this to change the world. And I want to make sure that all different types of people are getting the resources that they need. So that's my wise words for the day. If you guys are needing more assistance with this, this is why we started my Reset Academy. This is why we do the resets that we do every other month. Join me in the September reset. 15-day experience learning how to fat burn, learning how to use metabolic switching. If you don't need to burn fat, you can still join us. It's not 100% focused on that. It's focused on fat burning. If you're stuck with your weight, it's a fabulous place to be. So, and it goes live on Friday. So we start selling for that on Friday. And we'd love to have you join us. It is definitely one of the most fun things that I get to do. So if you're listening to this later, depending on the area that your platform you're watching on, please tell us your fasting story. If you've been in one of my resets before, share what you love about the resets. Everything I do is to help you. And I just don't want you to give up on your health. And please, let's get metabolically healthy right now. That is what the world needs. And the world needs us to be kind to each other. So go be kind. Okay? Love you guys.